I am going to ask for a motion to seal the minutes from the executive session.
Motion to seal.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then I have to go backwards for a minute because I pulled the personnel recommendation off of the consent agenda, but they're in the administrative reports, which is Roman numeral 8, are part of that consent agenda. So I need a motion to vote on the consent agenda, which includes tonight the administrative reports.
So moved.
Okay, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Sorry, it's a little bit of a complicated evening. So I'm going to start out by saying under our personnel recommendation that there was going to be a discussion and decision tonight regarding administrative contracts, but we are going to table anything having to do with administrative contracts tonight. But we do, however, have a few people in the audience who are here to speak to us. So we would like to hear from them if they would still like to do that. So Christy Belisle, I know you wanted to speak. Thank you. First, I'd like to just thank the school committee for serving our community in the Bristol Warren Regional School District. I know that a lot of times you guys take a lot of heat, and I just wanted to publicly thank you for your service. It's really important what you're doing. I plan to come back to the next meeting since you've allowed me to speak at both. And I just wanted to fill you in on some details that you do not know. So I was hired in 2012 as a part-time athletic director. And in 1 year's time, the position was increased to full-time, based on the scope of work that I was capable of doing and the positive changes in our school, the athletics community, and the entire school. What I can say is that today you see a vibrant community of student athletes who have bought into an idea, and that idea is to be scholar athletes and to be student athletes first. They believe it, and you can see on your wall here, because the first year we could barely fill one, and this time we filled almost 2. A lot of them are missing now because students have wanted to keep them as keepsakes. These cultural shifts have been so important for our school and for school spirit, and to see these kids grow in our community and see students who otherwise would be at private school come back home. So some have gone for a year and then beg their parents to come back. Please let me play with my friends. Please let me come back and participate on teams with my friends that I have competed with my whole life. I want to be at home. Some students have made decisions, even though their parents had the means to send them other places, to stay in Bristol Warren schools. And I can say that I'm very proud of that, and I hope that you all are too. I think, athletics has sustained losing a lot of supports already. So after that 1 year at part-time, I was increased to full-time. And in that year, I also had a liaison at KMS that specifically coaches could go to after school, kids could go to with issues if they couldn't reach me since I'm stationed here at the high school. In addition, their secretary was also somebody that helped with boards and things like that at the middle school. Those positions have disappeared. My secretary here at the high school has been cut to half-time. So I can say that I think we've already felt some major hits in athletics, and that this would really devastate a community You can't do this job in 20 hours. I have 88 coaches that report to me. I have over 20 game day staff that report to me. We have 700 student athletes involved in the program. Most of them either scholar athletes or trying to be some semblance of that. We have kids in that group towards the bottom who academically, who come to school only because they have the opportunity to play at the end of the day. I understand Mario has a really hard job to do, and I'm not here to question his authority by any means. I want to present my case respectfully and in a way that I hope that anybody else who speaks on this issue tonight or through email or whatever does the same. I think we've shown a huge amount of sportsmanship in my 7 years, and I'd like that to be the sentiment when people speak about this issue. In 7 years, we've won 16 state championships, 13 state championships, I'm sorry, 22 division championships. We've made school history numerous times and had state, regional, and national champions and accolades. Before my tenure here, I don't think kids knew what academic All-American was or academic All-State. You have coaches in the cafeteria auditorium right now that could speak on that, who can tell you that they had one, maybe two All-State athletes before the program that we have carefully crafted and designed for them, in which they have personal touch, that there isn't just somebody scheduling buses and making sure that they have officials at games and that there's lines on the field. But you truly have somebody who meets with students, who has an open door to families, that shows their face at events, and really engages with them. I've sat with numerous student athletes who you will know that I did not reach out to. I didn't think it was their place to have to come and speak to you. Those kids come to my office, some seeking the opportunity to play in college and want guidance on how to do that. Some because they have no place else to be. There are kids that will volunteer to intern sometimes and help with laundry because they'd rather be here after school than go home to whatever is there. There are students who seek out opportunities that athletics can provide, that a full-time athletic director only could provide, that we service them. We make sure that they feel like they have a family here if they have one nowhere else, that they have teammates, and that they understand what that togetherness feels like and is. And in 20 hours, you cannot provide that to our kids, and they deserve that. And I believe that, or I wouldn't be here. I could provide you with all kinds of statistics if I wanted to, but I'm just going to keep it focused on the pure fact that 20 hours does not provide these kids what they need. It just doesn't. And pulling me from nighttime responsibilities while my son would be amazingly happy to see me every single night and allow me to put him to bed every night. He understands the sacrifice that I make to be here for these kids. And he's old enough now to sometimes join in the fun. But you would be impacting 700 students by cutting my hours down rather than finding a different solution if we need to make this budget for athletics smaller. I think that we can partner together and make and find ways, but this is not the way. This is the way that you think only hurts one person and their bottom line, but it hurts and impacts 67 programs when you do that. So somebody quoted 27, we have 27 varsity high school sports, we have 67 athletic programs. And some people who have never done my job believe that when a season closes, those coaches go away. And that would be really amazing, even though I love them, but they don't. They don't because their kids are still here and they want to be engaged with them. They want to come to the guitar ensemble that their kid is playing in or the band that their kid is playing. They want to be here. And I can't imagine that sending them away is the right answer. So I'd just like to say that there are schools out there, I'm sure Mario will present that to you, that there are schools out there that have part-time athletic directors. There are some in Central Falls, and in Pawtucket, in Situate, in Burrillville, and if that is who we aim to be, then make that decision. But when I was brought here, I was told that we want to be like Portsmouth, we want to be like Barrington, we want to compete with LaSalle, and when you look at those schools and when you look at the top 12 schools in that banner that you walked by in order to get in here that says we're in the top schools in US News magazine, when you look at the top 12 and we're 12, 11 out of 12 have full-time athletic directors. And what I can tell you is that we provide social emotional support for students, that our coaches provide that, and that our programs provide wellness opportunities for them that no one else does. Coaches spend more time with them in a day than their teachers do. It's a fact. These guys work and women work amazingly hard for you, for me. I need to make sure I say thank you to them for coming out and supporting me. Thank you to the community for supporting me. And I hope that you will make a decision to support me as well.
Now, Tara Thibodeau and Susan Rancourt wanted to say a few things about this issue as well.
Thank you very much. I know most of you, but for those who don't know me, my name is Susan Rancourt. I am a parent of 2 children that have done 7 sports just at the high school alone. I'm also a coach here at the high school, and I've been involved in boosters for many years, and I'm currently the treasurer of the booster program. So to say that I have an intimate idea of what Christy does on a day-to-day basis is probably putting it lightly, because I have seen what she does from all avenues. I've also sat in your position. I've seen musicians and athletes come to podiums and argue about programs being cut. I've witnessed the destruction, the underfunding of the school budget, and I've had to be part of the process in deciding where to make those cuts. I heard the promises of how students won't be affected, and we now know that that wasn't the case. Students were affected by years of underfunding, and programs and positions were cut. So we are now in the position of having to find money to refund some of these positions by cutting others. And I understand the need to add back in some of the social supports that were cut in previous budgets, but I could argue that for many, sports are the social support services, and the AD's office oversees much of that administration, the logistics, the emotion, and the passion behind support services such as athletics. I was part of the school committee that voted to make the position full-time, as I believe then, as I do now, that this position cannot be fulfilled on a part-time basis. It is equivalent to having a part-time principal of a 700-pupil school. I manage a small lacrosse team at the middle school, and Tara will tell you, since I handed it off to her, that is not a part-time job. If you were to look for precedents in other school districts who have part-time ADs, you will find personnel that might have their salaries limited by pension restrictions and the like, but are putting in far more hours than what dictates on paper. And these part-time ADs are in smaller school districts than ours, and if our current AD leaves because she cannot sustain a part-time salary, we will have a hard time finding someone of her background, education, and caliber at a part-time salary. Under this AD, we've had an incredible branding of our sports program. We've had development of coaches and athletes, support for Title IX, support for coaches and programs, and most importantly, finding and prosecuting a coach who stole thousands from athletes and families. We can thank Christy for that. She also ensures safe equipment, does so much more than a lot of people realize. A successful sports program in the school district is a marketable asset. Not only does it keep kids in districts, it brings them back. The sports program has rebounded to be one of the top programs in the state, winning multiple state championships a year, bringing students back in district. And I personally can name at least 10 kids off the top of my head that have come back to school districts because of the sports programs here and the legacy that's being built under Christy. She understands and fights for the advancement and the definition of student athlete by recognizing those players that have made it both on-field and in-classroom accomplishments. Both of my kids have decided where to go to school because of sports, for very different reasons, for those of you who know my kids. I can thank Christy for most of that. And so it may sound a little superficial that our lives are kind of defined by sports. You would add that academics is probably more important, but I'm probably living proof that you can have a very successful and amazing career from your high school sport. So I do place a lot of value in my high school sports. This demonstrates the need to have a full-time dedicated professional heading up this branch of education, and I do feel it's an education, and all the administration that is involved. I think until you are involved and invested in the department, you realize just how time-consuming the position is. As a coach, only once I became a coach, I truly became aware of the depth of what's involved. Hire, fire, train over 88 personnel, mentor and assist nearly 700 student athletes, mentor, recondition, lend out thousands of sports uniforms, oversee the athletic trainer's office, foster and recognize student athletes awards, manage hundreds of bus schedules, facility rentals, referees, and God forbid that rains on it. Communicate to countless families, nurture them, mentor them, placate them, ensure safety and legal protocols are adhered to, fundraise thousands of dollars for non-budgeted items, invest in field use, striping, mowing, construction, and field projects. This is not an exhaustive list of what Christy does. Does that sound like a part-time job to you? It's not, and it can't ever be. If we want to continue to grow as a school district, we need a full-time athletic director.
Athletes that went through through the high school with Christy. I have 3 more, and thank you very much for honoring 2 of them this evening. I also sat in your position many years ago, and I know the difficult decisions that you have to make. I know that you have to take, your goal is to impact the largest number of students with the amount of money that you have. And as you can see tonight, athletics is a huge piece of our youth and our community, and it binds our community together. And I'm not going to go in on all the details because I did email some of you, and I will email you the details, almost the stats and everything that we had put together. But I do want to ask the questions because it's not an easy decision that you guys have to make because you do have to cut $2.5 million from your budget. But before you do that, before you look at these, what is the long-term impact of putting this position to a part-time job? What is your plan? So what will you be looking for? How will you be addressing the things that will be missing that she will not be able to or this position would not be able to do in the 20 hours a week? Where has this worked? Have you seen this work in a district of our size? Has this process worked in Burrillville, which are much smaller than we are? Does it make sense to do this? Does cutting $40,000 from your budget is the impact because you have to hire additional people because she won't be able to be at those certain hours? Are you actually saving that much money? How will it be evaluated? Would this issue be revisited if you figured that it didn't, if you come down the line and you make this decision and it doesn't work? Will it maintain our quality programs? Will our programs be impacted? Will less kids stay in our school district? Will less kids go to college to play athletics? Will less kids get academic scholarships? And what research has been done to support this data? What research and that's going to be your role, have you put together that would make this something that is a smart decision for our district? So thank you very much for listening. I do thank you for tabling this for tonight. I'm hoping that means that you're going to do a little bit more research on it. And we would like to keep that position as a full-time job.
Okay, thank you again for speaking. We're going to next pull off a couple of the items from our personnel list. We're going to be pulling off B2 and D5. And all of I. And that is so that we can have separate discussions on each of those.
We don't have
And
B.
E. Pardon?
We don't have anything that says B.
This is from the personnel list that the school committee has, which falls under number 1, under Roman numeral 6, personnel. These are our supporting documents for tonight.
So we don't have that list that you're talking about. Okay.
Recommendation S, 2019-40, personnel. Without B2, B5, and all of them.
Okay,
Motion to approve.
discussion.
So just because I know there might be some confusion as to what's going on out there, we have a list of personnel recommendations. Ordinarily, these are somewhat routine reappointments, et cetera. What we've done tonight is we've identified several that we're going to have a separate discussion on. We can't identify the individuals that we're talking about, that's why you don't have copies of these things. But when we talk about the individual ones, we'll be able to identify sort of the position that we're talking about. And I think the discussion will be able to illuminate what we are. But for these, right now, what we're currently in motion on is everything that we're not discussing separately. These are all the ones that ordinarily would have been done as part of the consent agenda that we don't need to have any discussion on at all. I just wanted to clear that up. I'm sorry?
Is there a date for those discussions?
I can't hear what you're saying.
Is there a date for those discussions?
But on the other,
The ones you tabled?
they're about to, no, those aren't, the ones that we tabled regarding the athletic director,
No, the ones you were just talking about.
they're going to happen immediately after we do this motion. Tonight.
Okay, so this is on everything on personnel except for B2, D5, and I. Does everyone understand? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Yes. Alright, do you want to introduce?
So in that consent agenda, I'd like to introduce the new principal of Gutierrez Elementary School, Beth Roman. Beth is here tonight. Beth is a former teacher in Portsmouth. She was a math coach in Jamestown, currently an assistant principal in Exeter, West Greenwich. But just a quick blurb from one of her letters of reference. If you're looking for an experienced instructional leader who will hold high expectations and support your school community to urgently and sustainably move forward to a vision in a safe and supportive culture, look no further. Beth Roman. So congratulations, Beth. We look forward to be working with you.
I'll make this really quick. I just wanted to say thank you to all of you. Thank you to the committee. Thank you to my new staff that showed up tonight and brought me flowers. You know, it's awesome to come and see the kind of community and see the students tonight. That was such a powerful experience to be a leader and be able to see all those kids that we celebrated tonight, because that's really what we're here for, right, is for the kids. And that's what I stand for too, and I look forward to being part of your district, getting to know everybody, and the kids and the families. So thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, so. Recommendation S 2019-40 B2.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. Ms. Ellsworth?
Madam Chair. Based on several budget discussions that we've been having over the course, Ms. Reish and I had the opportunity to sit down with technology. I had done some research. Obviously, most of the people know that I have a finance background and I have kids in the district, so I am concerned. We sat down with technology and going over that, we have quite a lot of salaries. We have over $500,000 in salaries and benefits. We have $500,000 in software and over $1.5 million in assets. And we sat there and they told us they were going to take a thoughtful pause. So for me, that thoughtful pause isn't so thoughtful, because we've got a chunk of money sitting there that we really don't have a direction for. So based on that, and based on the budget crisis that you've created, and not enough detail of where we're going with this technology, I am not in favor of B2 at all. And I think we really need to take a thoughtful pause of how we cut budgets and how we're impacting our kids, because this is not okay.
Mr. Ramos?
I'd just like to ask the superintendent if he might be able to provide some explanation regarding the role and importance of this position, which is the data manager and the information technology department, and why the recommendation is that we fill this position in light of the concerns that were just raised by myself.
Thank you, Mr. Ramos. So the data manager is responsible for a plethora of information that goes back and forth between the district and the Department of Education, whether it's our average daily attendance, discipline reports, data that's reported through Aspen. So this position is really the data quality, ensuring that we have accurate records of all our students within the district. So this is a position that is vital. To Mrs. Ellsworth's point, this position is filling a retirement and will be going down a different position in the technology department. But we feel the data manager is a position that supports all the schools and making sure that all of our systems, especially Aspen and all the reports derived, are being met to that regards.
Thank you, Dr. Landry. Mr. Bradshaw?
So Dr. Andrew, you mentioned that this is filling a retirement and that we'd be going down another position within the IT department, and as I understand, we'll be going down a tech support specialist position. Can you discuss a little bit, you discussed why the data management or the data manager position is so important, why you believe that it's more important than a tech support specialist role?
So it's the tech specialist assisted the technology department with a lot of a liaison between the business department. We purchase orders, some of that research. We can absorb that position through other positions in the technology department or the budget or the finance department. So that'll be the restructuring in that department, but again, I think the data manager is a lot different than other roles in that position, in that department.
And that, just a follow-up. And the data manager role, in your opinion, could not be absorbed
Correct.
within another department? Thank you.
Ms. Reach?
Hi, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I just wanted to take a moment to agree with what Ms. Ellsworth was saying about not having quite as robust a technology department. I know that a lot of the members of the school committee, in addition to some of the research that we've received from administration, has shown that lots of other school districts of our size, like Portsmouth, I believe, and also Barrington, have approximately 6 members of their technology department instead of the 9 that we currently have on staff. And in this current situation we find ourselves in, we have to remove the $2.5 million from our budget. I would prefer to see positions that aren't directly affecting our students on a day-to-day basis be first to be not renewed, not filled. I'm sure I'm getting my terminology wrong. But my concern is, I do know that it's going to make some other people's jobs more difficult. But in my opinion, and based on the research that I've seen, I think this is a way to start the process, even though it's not as large a chunk as I know eliminating the teachers would be. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Mr. Cabral?
Those of you who have heard from me before, I've used the word essential and non-essential. And in my opinion, the essential is anyone who has contact with students. Now, we've heard a few people that have contact with students. In the technology department has 9 people right now. As you just heard, other departments have 5 and 6, other schools. I'd like to go down to 6 and have other people have to do a little bit more in their area, right? And other systems can run with 6 people in technology. And give me those other 3 people at probably about $300,000, and I can bring back a lot more people, meaning teachers, athletic directors, or anybody else who has contact with students.
Dr. Landry?
Yeah, just for clarification, so the recommendation. Just for.
It's now 10 o'clock. We have a school committee policy that requires us to make a motion to suspend the rule that requires the meetings to end at 10. So I move that we suspend that rule so that we can continue this meeting beyond 10 p.m.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
So, Madam Chair, just for clarification, so even with this appointment, tech department would be 6 people, and there's 2 interns. So when we're counting the 9 heads in the restructuring, it's actually going down. So we include the 2 interns in there, but with this restructuring, we will have 6 people in that department. So with the data manager and then absorbing another position, so there will be 6 people in the technology department.
Mr. Ramos and then Ms. Ellsworth.
Are those internships paid internships?
Yes. Minimum wage.
Excuse me, it's 5 people. We'll be going down. Currently, we have 6 people with 2 paid interns.
Rose, would you just introduce yourself so everyone knows? That's okay, just want to make sure.
I'm Rose Moore, I'm the technology director here at Bristol. Excuse me if I'm out of order, but so we do have 2 paid interns. They come in maybe 2 hours a day, if that. We currently have 6 people in our staff, and with this restructuring, we would be going down to 5 people, if you agree.
Thank you.
So based on Barrington, who has about 350 kids more than we do, they have 6 people, including 1 paid intern. So I think that since we're taking a thoughtful pause on technology and we have no path forward, we need to go and look at other districts that have successful technology and have a path forward in a 5-year plan. I've said this from the very beginning. We should not be cutting teachers and athletic directors that impact our children. And we have, and I said this to you, Mario, we should be looking at the administration building. We should. We need to make sure that we're cutting things that aren't directly impacting our kids.
Mr. Bento?
Dr. Andrew, a question. If we were to reduce technology further, would the data manager position be considered critical and would stay? And are there added responsibilities to that position now compared to before?
Yeah, so it's a critical position. Someone needs to complete the reports and file them with the Department of Education. So even in a restructuring, that a data manager would be necessary.
And with that position, has added responsibilities already been placed?
Over the years, as more reports are required from the Department of Education, there's more and more reports that they have to do.
Thank you.
Dr. Andre, can you tell us if other neighboring districts have a data manager? Or
Yes, they do.
so like Barrington, Tiverton, Portsmouth, they have that position. So because I do agree with Ms. Ellsworth's comments as well that we need to look at the administration building, which we've discussed. We need to look at tech. I think it's a very high ticket department. I'm just not convinced that this is the position, from what I'm hearing tonight, that we would necessarily want to eliminate with more information about what we need in that department. Does anyone else have any comments? No, one second. Okay, so we are voting now on just B2 from the personnel recommendations. Okay, ready? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Show of hands.
No.
Against?
Excuse me, can we have a reading of the names who voted against it? Thank you.
John Saviano.
Thank you.
Sheila Ellsworth?
Carly Reich?
Richard Ford?
Yes.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Okay, so John, next.
Okay. Recommendation S, 2019-40, personnel, D5.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Is there any discussion? Mrs. McBride?
I asked that it be removed and I vote no.
Anyone else? Okay. Okay, so we are now voting for D5.
Do we get to know what position? Not personnel, just position?
Unfortunately, no, because it's an identifiable position. If we said the position, it would identify the person. That's it.
You said,
So, department?
Marion, do you want to weigh in on that? As the school committee lawyer?
Adam, I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay.
They have a right to know what the position is that you're voting on. Thank you.
Thank you. On that note,
Is that high school? Is that?
This is just a vote on the filling of the road, not to cut the position. Angel is voting on, right, it's not a cut of the position.
So it's the high school then?
Yes.
Okay.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Yes. Recommendation S, 2019-40.
Yes.
Personnel, all of I.
Motion to approve?
Discussion.
Mr. Reno.
All right, so this is a recommendation, and I'll just read it generally. Let me get it real quick. This is
Can
recommendation
you
for...
speak into your mic? We can't hear you.
Sorry. This is recommendation for suspension, non-renewal, and/or dismissal of certified personnel based on the uncertainty of sufficient federal, state, and local funding for general and categorical programs for the 2019-2020 school year, and program reductions, consolidation of classes, realignment of staff, and elimination of positions to more efficiently and effectively use the school system's assets and to meet the needs of students. The superintendent recommends to the school committee the dismissal/non-renewal of the listed personnel effective with the last day of the 2018-2019 school year, and there are 8 individuals that are listed there who we will not name. I wanted to start off the discussion by just asking the superintendent if he could identify whether these recommendations for lack of a better term, layoffs, are related to the proposed move from the 8-period block schedule to the 7-period schedule that was the topic of some of public comment tonight.
That is correct, Mr. Ramos.
And then in addition, I believe that covers most of them, but I believe one of them, all of this is not directly related to that change, is a recommendation related to the elimination of the coordinator position for the PASS program.
So that position is on here. Again, I think we want to, out of an abundance of caution, we have a June 1st state law that we need to notify. So again, we needed to notify the teachers prior to June 1st so that we could have discussions and look at all avenues of the high school schedule. We are looking at the high school schedule because we do have a budget shortfall. We know there's priorities across the district, especially supporting new programs at QCOL and KMS and keeping some teachers at elementary school. So the majority of this discussion on the layoffs is directly related to the high school. So we did, in working with the high school administration, look at possible ways that students still can have as many course offerings as possible at the high school. And as a result, we were looking at a change in schedule. In doing so, 8 teachers received layoff notifications, again, out of an abundance of caution prior to June 1st.
So when you have said on a couple of occasions, just right now, abundance of caution, do you mean to indicate or suggest that it is not final decision that these positions would be removed, and that it is not final decision that there would be a change from the block schedule to the 7-period schedule at Mount Hope High School? We were to vote on this tonight.
The current proposal is for a 7-period schedule. That's the way the high school has scheduled the building at this point. So if it goes back to a block schedule, then we would have to look at different positions that would be needed and then weigh that into the funding and how to fund those positions coming back in.
Well, let me ask a clarifying question. Is the suggestion that if it was to go back to a block schedule, that there would need to be potentially different layoffs?
No, be adding more positions back into fulfilling. It wouldn't be additional layoffs. So in order to have eight periods, you would need additional teachers moving forward that are currently not in the budget.
So,
So if I can try to clarify here, I think what Dr. Andre is saying is that going from an 8 to a 7 means that there is a necessity for less teachers.
Correct.
So if we were to not approve, not at this meeting because it's not on the table, but moving forward, if we would, if this committee, it was the pleasure of this committee to continue with that the block schedule, with 8 periods, then we would need to rehire staff. Is that correct? Or
That's-
hire more staff?
Yeah, that is correct. But additionally, that can also be in a 7-period schedule. So,
Hire, not rehire, is what I mean.
yeah. So depending on, again, course selections, and moving forward in the changing needs, we've hired teachers in August, depending on course selections or new students coming into the district. So again, this is out of an abundance of caution. Working with the high school administration, so this is a modified 7-period schedule too, so there's aspects of a block schedule that, again, I'm a proponent for the block schedule, and advocated for it for a couple of years ago. I think there's some benefits, but in discussing the rotation with the high school administration, Dr. DiBiase is here, so the students there would be 7 course offerings and dropping 2 classes a day so that there's longer instructional time. So instead of having 4 classes like they typically do right now, it would be 5 classes. Instead of being 80 minutes long, they're about 60 minutes long. So you have, again, the benefits of a longer instructional period. And then the only change is going from 7 course offerings to and 8 course offerings.
So, my current understanding is that the plan to move to a 7-period schedule instead of an 8-period block schedule was based upon, what the recommendation is from the district administration as a means to find part of the $2.5 million in budget cuts that are necessary based on the budget that was approved by the Joint Finance Committee. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. And it doesn't cover the full amount.
No.
Right. My question is, in reaching that recommendation, at least at this point, were there other alternatives that were considered and rejected? Or are there other alternatives that you are not currently considering? Or did you conclude that this is the only option because of the quantity of the cuts? And can you just explain whatever answer it is that comes from?
Yeah, so this was one of the options we looked at. So earlier we had the discussion, and even during our JFC presentation, that we were going to invest in social emotional learning, especially programs at KMS and UCOL. We also were committed to maintaining small class size at the elementary schools, especially K through 3. So there was additional, we maintained teachers at Colt Andrews and added an additional teacher at Hugh Cole. So we prioritized that and looking at it. We also looked at the staffing at KMS. Again, there was no cuts at KMS, there was actually investments in KMS in the connections classrooms. So we looked at the high school schedule, that's our last building, and then we tried the best we could to balance the students' requests and the course offerings, and making sure there was multiple pathways. So taking everything into consideration and trying to cut $2.5 million from our proposed budget, as well as invest almost $400,000 into our social emotional program. We need to close $2.9 million. So this was one aspect on rescheduling the high school, that students still will have access to the majority of the electives, their core programming, and I still think we'll receive a high quality education.
Let me ask the question in a slightly different way. Right now, I know that we're not voting on the budget proposal right now. I know that we're voting on the proposed layoffs of teachers that are associated with what the current plan is for the budget proposal, and I recognize that. But I also recognize that, sort of once you take one step down the road, it becomes easier to take the next step down the road as well. So I'm weighing these decisions very heavily in terms of making a determination as to whether it's an appropriate thing to do right now. And what I'm trying to understand is, are we in a position right now where if we don't lay off teachers, there is no way to make up the $2.9 million that you just described? Or if we were to say, reject this recommendation, are there other things, other areas of the budget that you've looked at and said, we could cut there, but that would be actually worse than what I'm currently proposing?
So I'm going to go through the process with Director of Finance.
So when it comes to staffing, when you're looking at what's 80% of the budget, staff has to happen with a $2.5 million cut. What that staff looks like, I'm not really sure. But with the majority of your staff are teachers, something does have to go. We've looked at fund balance, which will be part of the recommendation coming forward. We've looked at maximizing grants. We're having the Department of Education come down to maximize the grants with us. So we're looking at outside help to make sure that we're not violating any laws. We're working with all the principals to look at every single line item. But even if we went through every single supply and contracted services, it's extremely hard to close the gap. If you're looking at surrounding districts, then you can cut less than this. We're laying off much more than we will be tonight. So, as Dr. Andre said, out of abundance of caution, this is where we're at tonight.
I don't mean to be overly difficult, but maybe this is the easiest way to get at the question. If the school committee was to reject this recommendation, which meant that these 8 teachers should not be laid off because of the rule that you have to let them know by June 1st, and we're not having another meeting before June 1st, at least currently, where there's a recommendation for layoffs. What does that hypothetical world look like?
You can create a structural deficit.
And when you say create a structural deficit,
When you don't.
let me finish the question. When you say create a structural deficit, you mean that we might be able to find a way to plug in money in different places, it would just mean that we are digging ourselves a perpetual hole going forward?
Yes.
So, I I have another question about the, and this might be one, and I don't mean to put anybody on the spot, but I know that there are members of the high school administration here that might be able to address this. And I think they may have been, but I noticed that I might have a question about this. Which is, you know, we've heard that there was an effort made by the administration to work with the students to meet all of the students' scheduling requests, and I believe, although I don't have it open in front of me right now, that the information that we were provided, that we were able to meet 95% of student requests for schedules. But then we also heard in public comment tonight some very articulate high school students who expressed a great deal of concern over some of the choices that they were being faced with as a result of the change from the block schedule to the 7-period schedule. Choices that were inconsistent with what their hopes and dreams and expectations were for what they would be able to get out of high school, perhaps the pathways that they're choosing. And I wanted to hopefully hear some sort of explanation that marries this, I think, concept where we're able to meet most of the requests of students with what sounded like were concerns that were not limited to, you know, a handful of students, but perhaps could have been many more than, they at least sounded as though they were representative of other students beyond those that were just speaking tonight. Looks like Dr. DiBiase is on her way home.
Hello. So, I guess the short-ish answer to your question, Ramos, is that whether you're in a 7-period schedule or an 8-period schedule, if you have what we call singletons, where you have a course that there's only one section of that course, sometimes 2 sections of that course. We probably have in the 30s, a minimum in the 30s of singleton courses at Mount Hope High School, which is awesome because it gives kids a real diverse opportunity to take the courses. When you're dealing with either 7 periods or 8 periods, it's inevitable that you're going to have courses that meet at the same time. Aspen builds the schedule with the students' requests in mind, theoretically, and to build a schedule that will have the least number of conflicts in students, within students' requests. I believe the course analysis that I sent, that it was a link in the document that I had sent you, had very minimal conflicts in student schedules, which is where that 95% student request satisfied comes from. Now, with that said, when students initially made 8 course requests, and then those became 7, there are students who wanted, for example, a full year of marketing, in addition to a full year of band, in addition to your PE or 2 AP courses and so on. And that is the one downfall of going, I think, from the, well, one of the downfalls of going from the 8 period to the 7 period is that, which was so great for our kids, that they were able to take an extra class above and beyond what we've had as our schedule for 20 some odd years. Now they're forced to make a choice, and it's a hard choice for them to make. Do they still have opportunity to do their pathways? Absolutely. Will they still have opportunities to take every AP course that we offer that fits into the schedule? Absolutely. We are still running almost all of our AP courses. The only ones that aren't running were due to numbers. Mrs. King?
Yeah, well, what I would just say is one of the things that's really very positive in our schedule development is it truly is student
driven in the sense that our schedule is built based on student requests. So that's where we start. So we start with what the students want, and we build around that. And so if there are singletons, it's based on student requests. If we're not running, for example, an AP course, it is based on the lack of student requests in a particular course. Then, given that, we then work from there. And certainly when you have singleton courses such as acting, performing arts, there is only one concert band. There is only one acting course, and that is based on the demand. And that is going to bump up against other courses for some of these students. If students are taking 4 AP classes, that can happen. But we had the priorities in mind for programs, what we valued about the block in terms of time in the course, where we have an extended period of, teaching period, where we're able to go deeper. So that was a value we held. So we built this 7th period schedule very creatively to allow for a longer class period than what we traditionally had in our 7th period. We built a very specific rotation to allow for our specific and special programs, internships, real-world learning, school to career. So although it may feel like a step backwards, I think that when you look at the schedule, we did all that we could to make it something that I feel very good about.
Did that answer your question, Mr. Ramos?
Absolutely, I do have just a quick. It was a follow-up. I just want to make sure that I understood one piece of it correctly. So is the 95% based on the student requests for 7-period schedule, or is it based off of their original 8-period request?
It is based on 7 periods.
So in addition to the 5% that are not able to be met under the 7-period request, there's also any student who had 8 classes requested, they had 1 that they're just not getting.
Well, actually, they have more than that, because when kids do course requests, they choose their 7 or 8 primary requests, and then they choose 3 alternates, because in any normal scheduling scenario, kids are not going to get all of their primary requests. So basically, they have a first choice, a second choice, a third choice, a fourth choice. So that 8th class that they may have chosen as a primary was moved to an alternate. So if one of the primaries did not get satisfied, then an alternate was put in.
Right, but I guess what I mean is that, well, I guess I don't know exactly if I'm
Yeah, that
understanding.
percentage is based on the 7 periods, on the 7 course requests.
All right, so in addition to.
I believe so.
Because we ran it on the 7th.
We ran it on the 7.
Can I make a recommendation? I wonder if we need a workshop or
We'd love
some
to
kind
give
of a
you a
separate
workshop.
meeting on this topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would that be,
We can even use, some mock.
because I feel like there are lots of
Yeah.
in and outs. I have questions about the 7-period schedule, 1 drop versus 2 drop, which I don't know if everyone is clear on what that means. I know Barrington has a 7-period 1 drop. We're talking about a 7-period 2 drop.
Yeah.
So maybe we could tackle this that way. I don't want to stymie Adam's questions though, in case we need to follow up on that.
I mean, my only concern I think I've probably asked as many questions as I need to about this particular thing for purposes of tonight, but I do think that understanding what the impact is of moving from the 8-period blocks to a 7-period schedule is important for purposes of making the decision on this particular personnel recommendation, which is why I was asking the questions here. I think I understand in terms of functionally what that impact is. I think I understand now, but thank you very much for coming tonight and being willing to answer those questions.
Anytime, anytime.
And I do know that Mr. Bradshaw and then Mr. Cabral had a question as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as I was listening to you, theoretically, and I think you explained it a little bit in the alternate choices, theoretically in an 8-period block, acting, for instance, or concert band, there's only one offering. So based on enrollment. It's conceivable that a student that wanted acting and concert band and a marketing pathway, they would still have a conflict and they would still be in the position to choose what their primary class
Yes.
course load would look
Yes,
like.
correct. That happens very frequently even in the 8 period block.
Okay, so and my second one is more of a procedural, and maybe this is for Marianne. Again, or maybe it's just clarification to get it out. Again, we're looking at tonight notifying these individuals of, as Mr. Ramos put it, a layoff. That does not mean that these individuals could not be recalled at a later date if funding changes occurred that infused additional funding into the district, or we found other areas to cut. So it sounds like, again, to Mr. Ramos's point, if we don't make this decision tonight, then we are putting ourselves in a position to create a structural deficit, as our Director of Finance said. But we're not voting to go along with this recommendation is not voting to approve the recommendation on the budget. But I do understand Mr. Ramos's point where one step leads to another step. But I did want to make it clear that we could make this recommendation today, and in next week or the week after that, circumstances change, the administration takes a harder look, they sharpen their pencils a little bit more, they find another area that they feel that they could make impacts, and we could be recalling these positions. Is that true, Dr. Andre? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cabral?
First off, I want to say that everyone on this list, in my opinion, is essential. That's the first thing. The second thing I want to say is, I ran a schedule of 7 periods for many years. And I look out at this audience and I see several of those people who were in those schedules and they're successful. They didn't have an 8 period, they only had a 7, they were successful. Now, I dealt with the administration for a little while. They showed me what they were doing, and I went through it, and I was very pleased with what I saw. Could you please tell these people, of the core courses that a kid needs, how many are there?
On a yearly basis?
Yeah, like
So every
English,
student
history.
needs 4 years of English, they need 4 years of math, they need 3 years of science, 3 years of social studies, depending on their college and career aspirations, anywhere from 2 to 4 years of homework language, mandatory PE and health, 9, 10, 11, and 12 for graduation requirements.
So from
This
what
would be
I...
also the arts, thank you. But yes, also the arts.
Right, but you slipped that in there.
Yeah, but actually, it is a graduation requirement that they need to have arts.
So we're saying, I think I counted 5.
6 county
So they have two places where they can get selections. But it's still the 7 without the...
It's 6, Victor. It was 6. She named 6 without the...
It slips in.
No.
Yeah, it's the P and the art fit together.
She just said 6.
PE and health is a requirement.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's 6.
So now,
So what, I think what you're asking is that, so if you think about a freshman coming into the school, because I think this was a conversation that we had, every freshman is required to take an English, a math, a science, a social studies, and most opt to do their first year of world language. They must take PE for a semester, and usually opposite PE is one of the arts requirements, and that would leave in a 7-period schedule 1 full year class. So they would have, if they opted to take band, then that would become their full year class. If the student opted to take marketing, or they could take 2 semester classes. So they would have, in essence, that 1 full period that they would be able to take an elective.
last year, how many students were in a study? How many kids actually had a study in this.
During that eighth period,
Any
potentially, yes. We had a structured resource each period, so anywhere from 25 to 30 students per period, maybe a little bit more per period, for times 8.
So most kids had a study, so.
Mm-hmm.
So most kids. in that eighth grade
That's
study
per semester, that's per semester,
Right.
because they run on semesters, so. That answer your question?
Well,
Or not?
yes, it does, but you also know that I like a straight 7 out of 7.
Not
Not
a 7
7 with a twist?
No.
It's a 7 with a twist.
But thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Benjamin?
I'd just like to applaud the efforts of the administration at the high school for trying to do what they're trying to do. Also, like to thank some of the comments we heard from the students tonight. I'll tell you that I'm not a fan of going from 8 to 7, as I'm not a fan of converting our AD down to part-time. But, $2.5 million is a lot. And I am willing to go along with the recommendation at this point to give us flexibility and quite frankly, give those teachers an opportunity to make sure that they have a plan in the event that we are not able to rehire them back. I would strongly look forward to doing a workshop with Julie very shortly to go through this more, because I'd like to learn a lot more about this and see what we can do. And with any hope, we can look to try to get back to the 8 and certainly rehire some, if not all, teachers. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Madam Chairwoman,
Yes.
I'm standing here because I'm hoping that you'll notice that I would like to ask a question. It's not public comment time. I realize that. So, may I ask a question?
Is it on the topic of the block schedule?
It is on the topic of what we've been discussing for the last hour and a half, including the block schedule. Although it doesn't have the word block schedule in the question.
Okay, I'm not trying to be difficult, I just have to do that for process reasons.
It's very
nothing
important
personal.
related to tonight's discussion.
Okay,
Thank you.
would you like to come to the podium to do that?
Can you hear me from here?
I feel like you're being combative, and I'm.
No, I'm not.
Okay,
I'm just asking.
okay, you're welcome to speak, if you're not comfortable there, you can certainly speak from there.
I'm just tired.
We'll listen.
It's easier to stay there for me if you can
Okay.
hear me. So, due to this great committee's work over the past few months of trying to meet the social, emotional needs of our kids, which has been paramount for all of us, and you've all done a great job doing that. But now it's become the new buzzword for everything, which is great. But I'm wondering if we're trying to take the funds that the limited funds we have, to put the social emotional fixing needs in the lower grades and the middle school, which was our original goal here. So now we've got that kind of going along. So those schools feed into the high school. So now if we start cutting programs at the high school that definitely meet the social emotional needs of our kids in general, like sports, like the PASS program, like all of these soft electives that the kids need to take all the AP courses as a little break. They all need the arts programs. So if we do this in the elementary with all these extra funds, that's awesome. Now we bring the kids up to the high school. Are we still meeting their social and emotional needs by cutting these essential things? No. So I think that abundance of information that you all have needs to go in that package also. Let's just keep it rolling. Don't stop it by taking away stuff at the high school end that's meeting their needs too, as we continue along the bottom. I know we can't do it all, but let's not keep stopping and stopping forever. Keep it rolling. Don't get rid of these essential positions that we have now at the high school to fix these emotional and social needs. Don't knock them off there. That's where we need them too.
Thank you, Mrs. Ramos. I think Mr. Ramos had a
I had a follow-up question or two regarding the concept of structural deficit. So, if a structural deficit is created, what are the ways in which one gets out of a structural deficit?
Increased revenue would be one way to do it. So structural deficit would be if you have expenses, but you don't have the revenue to support it. It would be, you would have to either increase revenue. If you use one-time funds, you have to look for a transition plan out of use of one-time funds, which I believe will be part of our budget reduction plan. You would have to do cost containment over many years. And you'd have to cut in other areas and you risk. You risk the issue with the Department of, Rhode Island Department of Education, Department of Municipal Finance. Other districts have done it and they could get taken over by the state. So when you're looking at the ending of the funding formula, coming off $1 million reduction of the budget at the beginning of the year, now you're looking at 2.5. You're not, school districts cannot generate revenue. So you have to decimate the school district in other areas. You decimate the school district.
Unless you've got revenue, additional sources of revenue from the funding sources that you have, which is the town's budgets that fund, right? With the goal long-term, Dr. Andrade, be to go back to an 8-period block schedule, or what is the, I mean, in a perfect world, right? I know that we've spent time studying and coming up with the plan to move to this block schedule and then implementing it, and now we've had it for 2 years, I think. And as a general matter, we're not deciding to look to it as a place for spending cuts because it wasn't working out well. I think we've been quite happy with it. So when we're thinking about what the future looks like, are we looking at this transition as a stopgap measure in the hopes that we'll be able to secure more funding for it and return it in the future? Or are we looking at this as potentially accepting that, given what our budget looks like, we're not going to be able, the structure of our budget doesn't allow us to fund the 8-period block schedule without causing decimation of the other areas of the district?
So it's more the latter. Just right now, it's a result of the lack of revenue. So I don't know if Mr. Lander is still here, but I did have a conversation with him just recently. The other night at the budget subcommittee, we didn't get into detail, but Ms. Pellerin has secured the expertise and resources of a town manager in Massachusetts and really talk about revenue streams. So working, the concept I had with Mr. Kalanda regarding the JFC is how can we properly look at a 5-year revenue stream so that we can actually come up with real 5-year plans and projections. At this point, we're only looking at the expense side. I also think we need to have that community conversation about the revenue. So I would be a proponent on, again, this year as a stopgap of the 7-period schedule with the hopes that we could go back to the 8-period schedule. Again, a couple of years ago, I was a proponent for the 8-period schedule. I think there's a lot of benefits for it, but this year with the budget gap that we currently have, this is one way to close that gap while investing different areas, especially in the elementary and the middle school.
Is there time and a real possibility, because I think we've talked a little bit about the possibility of switching course and perhaps returning to the 8-period block schedule next year, or and potentially recalling these teachers or hiring other ones if they haven't moved on already. Is that something in your view that we are really seriously going to be looking at going forward if we accept this recommendation tonight? Or in your view and the view of the business manager, is this essentially baked in tonight? We're not turning back from these layoffs if we can.
So for this upcoming school year, yes, I think we're pretty much baked in, I think was the term that you used. But again, to be moved towards an 8-period schedule with the FY 2021 school year, that's a possibility. I think this year is a really difficult year.
Thank you.
Why is it the high school?
I cannot personally answer that, but Dr. Andre, perhaps.
Madam Chair, you're not really voting on the block schedule right now.
Right,
I know
we-
that. All you're voting on is whether or not to notify the 8 teachers, whether or not you're not renewing them. And the reason we're doing that tonight, and we really haven't discussed the block schedule, is we have to meet the June 1st deadline, what is the statute. So the only thing you're talking about tonight, under this motion, is whether or not you're going to lay off teachers by June 1st. On June 2nd, if you decide to call them all back, you can. But if you don't lay them off tonight, and on June 2nd, you think you should have, it will be too late.
I understand that. I think that because the layoffs are based around the fact that there may be a change in schedule at the high
You change
school,
your
that's why
mind
the
on June
discussion.
2nd, so as long as you lay them off by June 1st.
You can't lay any other teacher off except for high school teachers. So you're forcing yourself into this.
We would only be able to lay off the people who are on this personnel agenda today. But we would.
7 blocks. You're taking blocks that are away from the 7.
But just to be clear, we can't add personnel after this date from any school. I don't know if that was. No, I know, I'm just talking about layoffs. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Sharp. Is it on this topic
Yes.
of layoffs? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
My daughter, I just wanted to let you know, we were blindsided by this tonight when my daughter came home. She was devastated that she lost mechanical drawing and an engineering course because it's changing from 8 block to 7 block. And she's an AP student. She's got a 504 plan because she has ADD. And the 8 block system really allows her to thrive because it gives her breathing room to do what she needs to do. And it's just, I believe, it would be devastating for me to end up with this other system. So all I want to say is that please think long and hard before you lay these teachers off and do that for the kids.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Any, Mr. Corral? I think everybody else said?
I again realize this is a public comment, but my high honors high school daughter was asked to drop a class without any kind of conversation with the parent, and she chose to drop her AP computer science course abroad, female math and science. That's disheartening. And she's already looking to take extra math classes during the summers at CCRI so that she can get everything in that she wants. So now she'll go from 8 to 7.
Thank you. I'm going to say one more thing, if nobody else has something to say. This is a terrible position to be in, and I hope you all can understand that. I think the reason that we've had such a lengthy discussion, and honestly, in the past, these personnel recommendations are a consent agenda across the board, which means there's no public discussion about it. So that's me telling you that we are trying to be as transparent as possible. We want to have the conversations in public so that we can understand and make the best decisions, and so that you can all hear and understand why these recommendations and decisions are being made. I also want you all to understand that with these layoffs, if they are voted on tonight, the individuals can be recalled. I can't answer the question as to why the schedules are already changing for students at the high school, but I will look into that. I can say that I think that this committee tonight has shown you all that we want to be very thoughtful about the schedule at the high school, whether we change it, why, what that looks like, what it looks like in other districts who have something similar to what we have now, something similar to what's being proposed. And that's all work we still have to be done. The long and the short of it is tonight, it's a very hard position to be in, because in order to lay anyone off, we have to do it by a June 1st deadline. And if we don't do that, and we can't find other places to cut, and because we have 2.5 million to cut, then we've put ourselves between a rock and a hard place. So it is unpleasant. It is not a seat I think any of us want to be in. I don't know how this is going to go, but I just, from my perspective, I just wanted to share that with everyone here. Thank you for listening. Okay. So we are voting now on just I of the personnel recommendations. So all in favor? So I is the layoff recommendations. So all in favor of I? Aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
No. Should I raise 2 hands for here?
Do you have a name roll, please? Do we have a name roll for the negatives?
They have their hands up. It's Adam, John, Carly, and Sheila.
Voted no.
Same as last word. Oh, they just was there.
Everybody else voted yes?
Yes.
Yes.
5-4 pass.
Victor voted no? Victor voted no, so it's going to be 4-5, so it doesn't
Yes.
pass.
Victor voted yes.
I voted yes.
He voted, oh, excuse me.
Okay, so next recommendation.
Yes, thank you. Recommendation S 2019-41, that the school committee, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, supported by the budget facilities subcommittee, approves quarterly 1 and quarterly 2 budget.
So moved.
Discussion?
Yep.
Mr. Bradshaw?
So this, and I'm glad Ms. Pellerin is still here, she hasn't abandoned me this evening. This is based on the governor's new requirement to upload our financial data to the transparency portal, the municipal transparency portal. It is essentially a draft of our quarterly 1 and quarterly 2 budget reports, at which time after these get uploaded. They are reviewed, questions are generated, then they will come back to this committee in the district to have those questions answered and get those resolved. Then I believe is there a final
Report.
a final report that we will then, the Budget and Facility Subcommittee will review and vote to bring to the full school committee for approval. Is that correct?
That's
Ms.
correct.
Palmer?
Any other discussion, questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Recommendation S, 2019-42, that the school committee, upon the recommendation of the superintendent and supported by the Budget and Facilities Subcommittee, approve transfer of $684,000 excess from Child Opportunity COSI Program Enterprise Fund to the General Fund to be earmarked for social and emotional support.
So moved.
Discussion? Mr. Bradshaw.
Again, this is another recommendation that came out of the Budget Facility Subcommittee. If you were at our subcommittee meeting last week, we discussed enterprise funds and their uses. And again, this is, the COSI is the after-school program that has been set up by this district. A school committee at some point in time years ago established rates for parents and student participation in this program, and this is a balance that has been carried over. So we are looking to use this excess funds to offset some of these one-time expenditures, as Ms. Miller mentioned when we had previous discussions on. We use one-time funds over a period of time with a plan to build that revenue back into the general fund at a later date. And this is a recommendation by the Budget and Facility Subcommittee to use that funds to offset specifically social emotional supports in the district. Would you like to add anything else, Ms. Palmer?
Yes, we're looking for your approval to commit those funds, which by law you have to do by June 30th, and to be bringing in a 3 to 5 year transition plan back to the school committee during the budget reductions.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Recommendation S, 2019-44, that the school committee, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approve the request of 4 families from homeschool their children for the 2018-19 school year, adhering to all requirements as set forth by the Bristol Rock Regional School District.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No.
Recommendation S, 2019-45, that the school committee, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approve the superintendent's 2020 Rhode Island Student Survey approval form.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Ramos.
I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Andre just so we can get an explanation of what this is.
So this is a survey working in conjunction with the Bristol and Warren Substance Abuse Task Force, and they work with the Department of Education and the Department of Health. So the student survey is a risk survey for middle school and high school students. The survey looks at a set of factors or conditions to which many youth are exposed to and associated with negative behavioral health outcomes. And the youths may report engaging improper behavior. It explores substance abuse, bullying, depression, suicide, and violence. This is a statewide survey, and no personally identified information is associated. The questions are arranged in a particular way and explore specific topic areas. To the youth in particular, it may seem like repetitive questions, but the questions actually probe different components. Questions are asked in multiple areas around substance abuse, such as alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, and prescription drugs. The questions are also asked across several different domains regarding the individual, peers, family, school, and the community.
So I just have a couple of questions. One, is it fair to say that the Department of Health is not allowed to survey our students unless we approve them to do so?
Correct.
Right. And if we do approve them to do so, do the students to whom the survey would be administered have a choice as to whether or not they complete the survey?
Yes.
And if we do approve them to do so and the survey is going to be administered, who is going to be giving it to the students? Is that going to be faculty and staff at the school, or is it going to be given to the students by those who are conducting the survey?
It's an online survey, usually with the assistance of the Substance Abuse Task Force. They come in and help implement the survey. We've done this in the past, over I think a few years. So this is, I think every 2 years, the Department of Health does this.
Yeah, and I was noticing on the form itself that it says that it's a survey that's administered to students in grades 6 through 12, and then there's a section that says minimum grade requirements, middle school's grade 8, high school's grade 10. Do you know what that means?
Yeah, so minimally, we could do 1 grade at the middle school, 1 grade at the high school. Or we could administer the assessment to all middle school and high school students. We would prefer just a sample.
Okay, and other than the benefits of providing data to the entity that is conducting the survey, are there any other benefits to the school district or the students associated with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Substance Abuse Task Force uses the data to drive their programming. And also, we can look at it for our guidance department, our health, PE, to see where the current needs of our students.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the survey? Pardon?
Does it cost us anything?
There's no cost to that survey, correct? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Recommendation S, 2019-46, that the school committee, upon the recommendation of the superintendent and supported by the policy and curriculum subcommittee, approve the first reading of the off-campus learning policy.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I will just take a brief moment to kind of clarify what this policy is. Diane Santa actually crafted this policy. I think it was Rosemary Jones that also helped you do so. What it does is it helps lay out what the expectations are for students that are engaged in either dual enrollment off-campus learning or work-based learning. Kind of lays out what the responsibilities are for the student, for the school, and for the place of and it's our first reading. Thank you.
Mr. Bradshaw?
This is a new policy, correct? This is a new policy, not a change to an existing policy?
Yes, it's a new policy.
Thank you.
Mr. Ramos?
And you said that this was crafted by Diane Santa and with the assistance of Rosemary Burns. Was there, what was the, and maybe this is a better question for you, Ms. Santa, what was the driving force behind the determination that such a policy was necessary?
The first concern was student safety, making sure that we had clear protocols on our end to keep students safe and to spell out the responsibilities. And the second factor was that we wanted to make sure that we had an equitable process to be able to provide all students the opportunity. We needed to have clear criteria on what would qualify as an off-campus learning experience, and especially in the event that students are to get credits for these experiences.
Is this based on policies that you've seen elsewhere that are related to these types of?
We initially started this as just an internship policy, and that is recommended that we have internship policy. But then we realize that students are off campus for many reasons, whether it be to participate in dual enrollment course or to participate in real-world learning or other activities where they're off campus. That's why we labeled it that rather than just an internship policy.
So the policy references a right to appeal. I imagine that's an appeal from a denial of a request for an off-campus learning opportunity.
Correct.
And it says through an appeals process that shall consider source of evidence, et cetera, but I guess my question is that appeals process defined, and who that appeal would be to, and how it would be done?
It doesn't have it clearly spelled out here, similar to other appeals process, where the student or the family would go to the principal to appeal the decision.
Well, right, but the eligibility determination is being first made by the principal, right? So then it would go through. Would it make sense in this policy to directly reference what the next steps would be?
So you can certainly add that.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you.
So do you want me to do a vote to accept based on changes that we would make at the policy subcommittee? Does that make sense?
Yes, I don't see any reason to slow down the process.
Okay. All in favor of that?
Aye.
All opposed?
Recommendation S 2019-46, the school committee upon the recommendation of the superintendent approves the Bristol Warren Regional School District School Committee resolution in support of Safe Schools Act of 2019, which is House Bill 5762 and SB 636, which is Senate Bill. Assault weapons ban 2019, House Bill 5741 and Senate Bill 635, and high-capacity magazine ban, House Bill 5739 and Senate Bill 637.
Second.
Discussion.
I just wanted to thank Madam Chairman for putting this on the agenda. I'm happy to see that as a school committee that we're deciding to support some state referendum that are coming forward. Thank you.
Yes, and I should give credit to Karen. Do you remember the name of the person who brought these before us? Carrie.